Hello, so for today's lesson we're going to talk about fading the lure and using just hand signals for our certain behaviors. So for sit, for down, we're going to start off with sit in this particular video. So what I want to do, and everybody's going to be at different levels for this, so I'm going to kind of go through it fairly quickly. For some of you, you might need to start at one level and work on that a little bit longer before you can progress. For some of you, you might go through this very quickly and you might get to a point where you're simply working with just hand signals. Good girl, thank you. Where you're working with just hand signals, you're not using any verbal cues fairly quickly, okay? And it also depends too on how much you use verbal cues in your training. So for me, I tend to not do a lot, just verbal training. Most of my dogs are trained from the beginning on verbal cues as well as hand signals. So it's a lot easier for them to adjust to just hand signals. If you have a dog that's trained only on verbal cues, it can be a bit harder. So, freebie. So we're gonna start off just kind of going fairly quickly, okay? So since I have two dogs, I did not intend to have two dogs, but I have two dogs. I will show you with both of them. So Henry's a little bit closer, so I'm gonna start with him first. So I always wanna make sure I start with my dog in a stand when I'm doing sit. So I have him in a stand. I'm going to keep the treat right by his nose, bring it up in line with his spine. Yes, good job. As soon as his butt hits the ground, he gets a yes and okay. So for Albie, I can show you with her, up and back. Yes, good job. Right over her head. So I'm going to do this again as often as I need to until I'm getting a really fast response. So as quickly as Henry and Albie are responding, that's what I want to aim for. Once I get that, I didn't ask for that, but thank you. So once I get that response, then I can move up. And I'm not just gonna automatically go to, standing up and with the treat, either in my hand or out of my hands. I'm going to kind of move up gradually. So I start off here, right? Yes, good job. I do a bunch of repetitions. Next time around, I'm going to still have the treat by her nose, but instead of keeping it at her nose the entire time, yes. Good job. I bring my hand up slightly, okay? So I'll show you with Henry. He's got a scratch. So treat nose level, bring up, yes, good job. So it's about 2 inches above nose level that I'm going to start. So after I do that as often as I need to, and how I can tell if I can move forward or not is if my dog is responding at this new criteria as quickly as they were the previous criteria. So again, I'm looking for that really fast response where I don't even have to really do much. My dog is automatically putting their butt on the ground. After I get that, I'm going to move up a little bit further. Treat nose level, yes, very nice. Show you once with Henry, treat nose level, yes, very good. So my hand is coming up about 4 to 6 inches above their nose. At least that's what it looks like to me. I have a very hard time telling distance from this. Okay, after I do that, yes, very nice. I can pretty much stand up all the way with that treat in my hands and then reward, mark, and reward. I like to start off, especially if this is something new, continuing to show her the treat first or him the treat first and then bringing my hand up. So I don't really want to have, my hand starting at, of course she's going to it. She's just kind of, lured right next to it, right? But say my dog is in front of me. I don't like to kind of start off here and then use my hand signal. My dog has never worked with hand signals before. Makes it a bit easier because it just shows them what they're working for, okay? So after I get that, where my dog is, I'm able to stand up all the way. Yes, good job. Show her the treat first. I'll show you once with Henry. Oh, yes, good job. You got a little distracted, but that's okay. Again, I want to practice that a lot. So until my dog is giving me as fast a response, yes, very nice, as that. That's what I want. Once I get to that point, then I can start to still have the treat in my hand, but I'm going to cut out that showing them the treat first. So I encourage them to get up. Yes, very nice. And I use that hand signal from where it would naturally rest. And I technically asked both of them to sit when I did that, so that's why I rewarded Henry as well, right? So get them up. Yes, good job. Yes, good job. Once I do that a few times with the treat in my hand, that's when I can take the treat out of my hand. Ready? Yes, good girl. Very nice. Yes, good boy. Good. So when I'm doing this, I can either use the words as I progress. So if you've never really done sit before, I would probably be saying sit as I practice. So it would be sit, yes, good job. Sit, yes, good job. Sit, yes, good girl. Sit, yes. Until I can get to sit, yes, good girl. And then I will start to fade out my verbal cue, sit. And so how I do that is simply by practicing the behavior, or the cue I should say, exactly how I would if I were to say the word, but instead I just don't say it. I stay silent. Ready? Yes, very nice. And you can see the two of them are pretty well versed in this. Most of my training is very, kind of body based. It's hand signal based, just because, first of all, I do a lot of talking while I'm working with my dogs, and I want to make sure I'm encouraging behaviors I like. So I do a lot just kind of, asking them for things so I can still communicate with people. Also, I just, always like to kind of use my body a little bit more. It's just more natural for me. I just gesticulate a little bit more. So, it really just depends on the person, how much you've already done with this. If you haven't done anything, it might take a little bit more time to practice. If you've already started to get your dog acclimated to the idea of using hand signals, even if you're not using hand signals, even if you're just using lures, it's going to be easier for your dog to adapt than if you were just using, verbal cues and then, just kind of waiting for the dog to practice it or to do it and then rewarding. It's going to be a lot easier, okay? So that is working on fading out the verbal cue for the word sit. Again, do it as slowly or as quickly as your dog is going to be successful. If your dog messes up twice in a row, I always recommend going back a step and making it a bit easier. And you want it to progress, even if they're not as experienced as these two are, you want it to look like the way that these two perform the behavior. You want it to look effortless. That's always our goal in training. We want to make it as clear as possible for the dog that it looks like it's no big deal and they've done it 100 times before. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.